Happy Friday. We have another episode, if you can call it that, of On the Couch with Claire today. I'm in a different room. This is one of our other consulting rooms in our clinic. There is still a couch there, but technically I'm sitting at a desk and still going on my coffee that I think I ordered at 8 a.m., but it's a long black, so I'm calling it an iced coffee now. Still good, not wasting a drop. So yeah, we're doing these once a month at the moment, and hopefully a couple of you can jump on live. But if not, if you're watching this on repeat, that's fine. You can still leave us a message. But if you want to open up and type us a message now, we will get it live. So end of July. It's the end of July. It's August next week. Can't believe that. We're over halfway through the year now. We are on the countdown to Christmas, as I was told yesterday. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I'll leave that up to you to decide. But let's get into it, because today I have a really special guest that some of you will recognize and will already know. And I'm absolutely just excited and genuinely thrilled to have this chat, and thrilled that she said yes to do it, because we're talking about some heavy stuff today, some of it. And today I'm going to be having not an interview, I like to call it a chat, with Carly Black, who is one of our psychologists here at Rowe Associates. So Carly is one of our senior psychologists. I'm not going to say too much because I'm going to let her tell us a bit about herself. But we're talking about her journey, particularly of the last couple of months. But most of you know that she's a great psychologist here in the clinic. She's also a mum to two girls. And she's talking about some really unique and significant battles that she's been through in the last year. So I am going to bring her in to the studio. Okay, hi.
Hi.
Thank you, genuinely thank you. Oops, I'm just 1 second. We're having technical. I wanted to get rid of that thing. Yeah, because it was on my head.
I'm back now.
Okay, we're all good. Okay, so for those that don't know you, I don't know, give us a little bit of rundown about who you are, what you do here in the clinic. A bit. Who is Carly? Give us a little chat.
Oh, how long have you got? So work-wise, in terms of the clinic here, I have been working with Clare in private practice for about 5 or 6 years now, I think. My background is I have a master's in clinical neuropsychology. So I was always very interested in brain and behaviour, and particularly from that background, I guess, in the links between disorders and damage to the brain and what that looked like in behaviour. I've worked as a researcher, I've worked as a neuropsych across both children's hospitals, in neurology and brain injury and those kind of settings. But after I had my youngest daughter, who's now 7, I kind of thought that private practice was a really nice area to explore as a parent. And, the kind of parent I wanted to be, being around more often for my children. And so here I am.
She was barely 2, I think, when we met.
Yes.
Yeah. I think she was, and I did not have kids, or I was about to have my first.
You were pregnant, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. And so and she's 5.5 now. So there you go.
Yeah. And here we are, all those years on the track. In the clinic here, I see a lot of teenagers. I like helping and supporting that age group as they're starting to try and work out who they are. Do any of us know, even at this age, but who they are and, where they might start to find their tribe in the world and feel like they fit in. I work a lot with study skills and time management and planning and organisation. But having said that, I kind of, run the gamut of all the things that come into the clinic pretty much.
You do. We just chuck it at you. And you do. Let us know if you're listening live, people. There's a couple of people on, so say hello. Okay, and you're a mum of 2 girls.
Mum of two girls, yes. I have a 13, nearly 14-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Okay, so very different stages.
Big gap in the middle. That was where I went back and finished my master's.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so we specifically, I mean, we didn't talk a lot about what we were going to talk about today. I mean, this could go any direction. So it really is a casual chat just to people watching live. So for the last 12 months, you have been in treatment for breast cancer.
Yes.
And I mean, finish that treatment or not finish that treatment? I mean, kind of finish the treatment for cancer, but I know that, you know, the treatment of your health and your oncology appointments continues, and it's not kind of done and dusted per se. Is it ever done and dusted? I don't know. I
am starting to think it's not, to be honest. So I was diagnosed in February 2021 with breast cancer. Didn't find a lump, as most people seem to expect it occurs. It was just that I noticed a visual difference. I am third generation in my family to have a breast cancer diagnosis. So I also have two sisters, lots of females in our family. Not that breast cancer only affects females, but we are its main target. We
got the boobs, right? Like, it is breast cancer. So
yeah. Yep. So my sisters and I think we've always been pretty vigilant. But this was a surprise for me that I didn't feel anything. You know, it was happening to look at myself in a mirror and noticing a difference. And then getting on top of that, but got my actual diagnosis in February 2021. It's a whirlwind after that.
I remember that. I mean, I remember the day where it was like, yeah, I'm just going to check that out. And was that a very much like, yeah, it's just like, it looks a bit different.
It wasn't. I think being third generation, I kind of, maybe morbidly, but did have a little bit of an expectation that it would happen to me one day. So yes, I was really shocked to some extent, but I think I also was like, yeah, all right, I kind of knew this was coming. And also that realization that just because you do your checks and everything, it doesn't put you out of the running. I was vigilant. I did everything I was supposed to do, and it still happened. So I shudder to think what would have happened if I wasn't vigilant, given that my risk was so high. I shudder to think what would have happened if, you know, we didn't have funding for research that's contributing to all of the treatment options that I did have available to me at the time. So I went off to visit an oncologist and a breast and endocrine surgeon pretty quickly, and was getting a port inserted so that I could have my chemo delivered through a port and start all of that as soon as possible.
It was all like full on, hey, like it was like, boom, done. Hey, I'm like,
not even a fortnight later.
I don't need to work anymore. Like, this is it.
I was amongst it. And so I did 2 different kinds of chemotherapy across roughly 5 months. Following chemo, where the aim was to shrink what was there a little bit, although I did have a type of breast cancer that they knew it wasn't going to completely eradicate what I had. It was just aimed at a bit of shrinkage and kind of getting anything else that hadn't been observed. And then I had a double mastectomy following my chemotherapy. So the cancer was only in one side, but given my family history and, you know, my want not to feel like a ticking time bomb following that, I opted for a double mastectomy. I've finished having kids.
Get rid of them.
I didn't need them anymore. Get rid of them, please. And look, I know that's not how everyone feels about.
It's still huge,
like mastectomies and, you know, losing a part of your body. I know that, you know, that decision comes a lot harder to a lot of people, but for me, it was a pretty easy one. So I did my surgery. I had expanders placed in so that essentially that skin was preserved for me to have a reconstruction down the track, and then was just going to head on into radiation, which, my radiation oncologist had said their responsibility was kind of coming in and mopping up afterwards. Unfortunately, I did get an infection in one of my expanders just to, add into the mix. So I had a trip back to hospital to have another surgery and have that removed, and some pretty hectic antibiotics at the time. And then finished off radiation after that. I'll be on hormone therapy for at least 5 to 10 years at the moment. Look, I'm still experiencing a lot of side effects, some things that are left over from chemo, some things that are known to be part of the process of hormone treatment, being forced into medical menopause, all of those lovely things.
That's stuff, all that, okay, are you cancer free? Okay, yeah, I'm cancer free, but I'm in pain and I'm going through early menopause and I'm seeing doctors and I'm like,
absolutely.
That's the stuff. I mean, I suppose that there's cancer groups, through the National Breast Cancer Foundation that provide support. But I think anyone and I hadn't had someone close to me with breast cancer prior to this, and your experience, and I think for the layperson, that stuff is the unknown. Like, it's just no concept, right, of the aftermath.
It is. Yeah, and right, for movies, we know that a cancer patient is bald and skinny and weak and sick looking.
Yes. Like grey and pale and kind of, deathly.
Yeah, we don't assume that the cancer patient is that person who's still going off to work. Sometimes who's bloated and puffy, and that bloated and puffy look that cancer patients have sometimes, is only highlighted by the fact that not only do you lose your hair, but you lose your eyebrows and your eyelashes and, all of that sort of stuff, which kind of took me by surprise. You lose nostril hair, right? So then you're prone to nosebleeds and, I'm sure.
I thought that was a good thing. And then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, right, nosebleeds.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought? But
I'm sure if I dug harder, I might have known.
Yeah. We've chatted before about how, as with other traumatic experiences, like the death of a very close person, or, after a while people stop asking if you're okay. And I kind of feel like that's with a lot of trauma for people and life changes, that is about the 12-month mark after things, which coincides kind of with the end of your chemo cancer radiation treatment.
Yep.
But then we've talked before about how your hair's back and you look well, and that's great. That's great. We like to see you well. I don't want you. It's such a good thing, but then there's an assumption, not by any malicious, intent by people. People don't consciously think, oh, yeah, let's not worry about her anymore. But just subconsciously, it's not in people's faces, right? We don't see you anymore as the cancer patient yet. There are days where you are struggling, obviously, physically. And
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I did hear it say somewhere recently, someone in a similar boat to me had said, one of the worst things that can happen is your hair grows back, right? And that sounds counterintuitive to anything we're led to believe, but it makes you look well again, and it tells people, oh, hey, your hair's grown back, you look great, you must feel great, let's get on with the next part. And it's not that, from my perspective, or generally from the perspective of any cancer people that I've come in contact with, that we want to dwell and be mollycoddled for extended amounts of time. But I do think, people do stop checking on you in general and just assume that it's business as usual. And I think even if you are feeling well, you're fundamentally changed. For most of.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah. So before we get on to parenting, because I want to talk about kids and families in this experience, but for yourself, you said to me, and I just want you to try and, if you can, I mean, it's difficult, I think, to put words sometimes to this, but if you can explain it, you've said a couple of times to me, I won't be the same person. And that's the same for everyone's major life
I'm not.
change.
And look, it does sound a little bit trite to say, but it changes your perspective on life. You know, I don't necessarily think I'm in that camp of people who's been able to say, I get up every day and I'm so thankful for every experience I have. And, you know, I haven't gone that uber positive kind of route in terms of what this has given me, but I'm different, and I am actually still learning who I am after this. I'm a person who has faced something that potentially could have killed me. And I guess, look, on that note, it still could, right? The possibility of cancer returning is always there. Do I live every day with that in the front of my mind? No, I don't think that's helpful for me or anyone around me. But I'd be lying if I said that it doesn't occur to me every now and then. Wow, did they get everything? Was there one tiny little cell still floating around in there that will embed itself at some point, and here it all goes again? You know.
I'm going to ask you a tricky question that I've never asked you. Might be tricky, might be easy. Do you hate your body for doing this to you, or do you wonder at its ability to fight this and are grateful to your body for what it's done in the last 12 months?
It's both. I think at first I felt really betrayed by my own body. It's both. But then I felt if my body was a different entity, right, and could acknowledge that she's doing her best. My body wants to be alive, essentially, and carrying around my brain and all my other associated bits and pieces. She wants to be alive, and she is doing her best to fight this. And some days she's tired, and some days she's hurting, and all of those kind of things. I think I've got more respect for her now, and I am, you know, equal parts doing a really good job of taking care of her and equal parts too tired to take care of her the way I want to some days. But yeah, I think that's the first part.
Yeah. I think that message is something that could be translated to other trauma for people, whether it be a health diagnosis or a grief of a death or a divorce, that to remember that your body and your mind, you know, it's doing its best. Like, I think that's a really great word. It's doing its best.
Yeah. You know, and generally for people, some days our best is what we've got, right? That's it. Yeah. It doesn't look like anyone else's best. If it's our best, that's all we can ask of ourselves, right?
That's it. All right. So I want to talk about kids and parenting and life alongside a cancer diagnosis, because I think, you know, we might be talking to people who are going through this, you know, more than likely. It's so common. But I also want to talk about, you know, for every person who has a cancer diagnosis, they know, you know, 10, 20, 30, 100 people. So, you know, their sphere, everyone these days pretty much comes into contact with someone who has been diagnosed with some form of cancer. And for women, breast cancer's up there. So so I want to talk about to those people who know people with cancer and what is helpful and what is not helpful, and, you know, what role you can play. But I want to just ask, because your kids are such different ages, what was that journey like for the 12 months? I mean, you don't have to give too many details about them personally, but more about your decisions of how to tell them, when to tell them, where to tell them, how did they cope? I mean, that's going to be very much age-based, but also personalities. Did it sink in? Did they still kind of expect you to be mum? Or were they quite worried?
Yeah. I mean, very much as a psychologist, I thought I should have known exactly how to deal with that and how to tell them what was going on. And And I still absolutely second-guessed myself with regards to those things.
I don't think we learn that at university. I don't think there's a subject.
There's not a unit based on how to tell your kids you've got cancer. That was probably one of the biggest and first things that I worried about, was how to essentially drop this bomb on my kids and, you know, my wider family. I remember at 23 hearing from my mum that she had cancer, and that wasn't easy either. And I had an essentially adult brain that could process a lot of that information at that point. So, you know, being mindful of those sorts of things. Our conversation happened actually really organically and very unplanned. I think I was talking to both of my daughters, who at that time were 5 and 12, talking to both of them about fibbing. It had come up. I don't know if one of them had been caught in a fib or how it started, but talking to them about fibbing. And then that sort of flowed really easily into me saying, well, actually, Mummy's told a couple of fibs lately, because I hadn't been telling them about all the doctor's appointments I'd been to. I wanted to know as much as I could about what was going on so that I could modulate my responses with them and be age appropriate in my answers, but, you know, truthful and actually have some answers to their questions at the point where I told them. So I did wait till I had seen all of my specialists and the next plans were in place. And
did they get the same information, or did you give more to the older one? Or
so I told them together. Yeah, I told them in one conversation together to start with. Not that was how I planned it, but we were all sitting together talking about fibbing. So I did tell them together. So that information was tailored more to the 5-year-old. And then I made sure I checked in with the 12-year-old and had a further conversation after that, which was actually really easy in the end because my 5-year-old sat through a bit of the information and then said, yeah, this is really boring. I'm going to go and do something else. So,
and when we talk to parents, right, about when you drop big news about stuff like that, about, you know, parents separating, and at that age, don't be offended or surprised if they listen to it, don't have much response, and then run off and do something else and seem kind of okay. I mean, they're processing and they heard it and they might come back later, and that's completely developmentally appropriate. The 12-year-old probably sat there for a bit longer and went, what the actual
and you know, knew more about what that C word meant, what cancer might have been, was very cognizant of the fact that she had never met my mum because my mum had cancer and that was how she died. So I don't think my younger one asked it, but certainly my older one pretty point blank said to me at some stage, are you going to die? And my answer to that would be my answer to everyone. Well, I'm not planning on it just yet, you know. I've got a really good chance. It's been caught super early. So that gives us the best chance possible of treatment. My doctors are really positive, which they were. None of this was, you know, lies. My specialists were all really positive because it had been caught nice and early and because our treatment options here in this country are incredible. We are very lucky in terms of what is available to us. So I'm certain my little one did have lots of weird and wonderful questions. I mean, one of her main concerns was, after I talked about chemotherapy and losing my hair, was would I make sure I please wore a hat if I came to school pickup? Which, you know, could be really offensive to some people. For me, felt like a really normal question for a 5-year-old to ask. What am I concerned about? Man, I'm concerned my mum's going to be bald and she's going to come to my school.
That's so embarrassing. That's
so embarrassing, right?
Yeah, right. So one of the things I want to know too is that you know, when I think one of the toughest lessons for me becoming a parent, you know, you anticipate most things, but some things you can't, was that you don't ever get to take, well, very rarely, it's much harder to take a time out. And I'm talking even for a day if you're sick. I mean, if you've got a cold and you're feeling pretty crummy pre-kids, you're going to roll over in bed and check out for the day.
Yeah.
And you just can't with kids, and you get up and breakfast needs to be cooked and lunch boxes need to be made, and life goes on type of thing. And that happens, at other points, whether you're sick with a cold or whether you have some grief to go through yourself. And I remember when, I had a parent die a few years ago, life goes on. So, divorce, death, a general cold, you don't really get it. Do you get it with cancer? I mean, is that a get out of parenting card someday? Come on. Or do lunch boxes still need to be made? Because are there times where you were able to put the kids aside, or not really?
Yeah, look, I mean, they're always your first priority, I think.
But even that's amazing, really, because you've kind of got a diagnosis that can kill you.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I don't know, I didn't have to think hard about that. But look, I had some really good support. I had lots of really good support. Where I was well enough, I was trying to do what I could. For the girls, and but also because I knew there would be some times where I wouldn't feel well enough to get up and do stuff. And in my way of functioning, and I guess with my particular moral compass, which is unique to all of us, right, I didn't want to feel like I was, this sounds really weird to say in hindsight about cancer, I didn't want to be abusing the situation. And so, like, I did what I could when I could do it, but I very much did have to have a really hard lesson about reaching out and accepting help where it's offered, which anyone who knows me will say is not my strong point. I've always been very independent and like to do things for myself and by myself. So it was a humbling experience having to, say, I can't do that. Can you help me? But from that perspective, I was lucky to have a lot of that stuff. My daughters, though, they had access to me, and I just asked that they understood that some days I was really tired and needed lots of sleep. I was not feeling particularly well, so they were always welcome to come and do quiet activities in bed with me if we wanted to just spend time together. But I wasn't up for any of the rowdy stuff a lot of the time. And it was important for me that there was still time spent. I, in particular, I guess, didn't want them to look back on that as a big, scary time where I just didn't get to see my mum or things like that.
Mum was absent.
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple of hospital visits for a couple of infections, and then when I had my major surgery, and they were bang smack in the middle of a global pandemic. So I couldn't have visitors. It wasn't actually a choice for some of those anyway. I couldn't have visitors, which when I was feeling really unwell was kind of okay. I didn't want my kids to see me really sick and in hospital, or see really sick people around me and worry that that was where I was headed. So look, I guess.
Yeah, I'm hearing like there's a lot of double-edged swords there. I'm feeling like maybe when you could do a normal school day routine, when you were in between rounds and you were whatever, feeling okay, maybe that stuff was good for you. And they will say that, if you're going through a period, I often say, at times, hard times, the fact that I had to get out of bed, that my kids were there and demanded I got out of bed, was good for me sometimes, mentally, so that's perhaps a good thing to maintain routine when you can, but then that's that fine line of listening to your body when you can't. And I'm kind of imagining the same things even with the visitors. I mean, last year was a shit year to get cancer, wasn't it? I mean, that was just ridiculous. But at the same time, not even the hospital situation, but if you're feeling that bad at home, do you want visitors? And this leads me on to like, what should people do right now if they know people with cancer?
Yes.
I'm imagining some days it would have been nice. I would have loved to pop around and seen you in lockdown. Yeah. We were both locked down in our own personal hells. But also it must have been some days where you went, oh, thank God I just can't have anyone over because I don't want to see anyone.
Yeah. And I didn't have to worry about offending anyone and saying, no, sorry, not today. It was, like you said, a double-edged sword. It was easy to isolate when chemo had made my immune system fall to pieces. So from that perspective, not having to say to people, oh, you can't come today, or, if you've got a little sniffle, please don't come over and see me. And, we were doing a little bit of home learning in amongst there as well. So I think the kids were at home and I didn't have to worry about them bringing germs home from school and passing things on to me. So COVID made it a little bit easy sometimes, but also it was quite lonely. It was quite a lonely time to be going through treatment and not have friends and relatives be able to, you just pop in and help and do things like that. Everything had to be planned, I guess. What was helpful was, I guess, people dropped things off to me. I had beautiful care packages that, I didn't have to put on a smile on a day where I felt rubbish and, make small talk with people. They completely understood that I wasn't capable of that, but also I guess COVID did rule it out in a bunch of scenarios where I would get a message after the fact and someone would say, hey, there's something on your front veranda, which was really lovely. You actually organised one of the things that really got me through, the book delivery, because I'm an avid reader anyway, but I think I put away something like 62 books while I was...
I'll give them a plug. I think they're called Lux Read, L-U-X.
Lux Read. Yeah.
Lux Read. And that is, it's like a subscription for once a month you would get a new book with some other little care goodies.
Yeah, with some treat things. Yeah. And that was amazing because that package showed up once a month. I had a new book to read and something nice. And it was just that, that little indicator that people are thinking of you, because in reality, there's not much they can do to ease the super hard burdens. They can't feel unwell for you. They can't visit 500 different specialists and be stuck with needles, every other day. But the things that I found really helpful were just the nice little indicators that someone was thinking of me. Look, the practical things were lovely too. So, if anyone is watching this and wondering what to do for a friend facing a diagnosis, I think, someone gave me a gift voucher for an online store where I could buy some scarves or some beanies. People had cooked and brought things like that around for me.
I was going to say, at the end of the day, can you go past cooking?
You just can't, right?
The pasta bake, drop it off. You just can't beat it.
Having something
that's something
there.
That the kids will eat. Spag bowl,
no frills, just tasty, easy food.
Carbs.
One of the best things. Look, I think if you're rallying around someone within your community, school drop-offs and pickups are amazing as well, if that's one less thing, and not every day, because you don't want to be completely invisible amongst the school community and your kids and things like that. Not every day, but if someone and their treatment day is Monday and they feel really bad 48 hours later, then just saying, hey, you don't even need to worry about this. I'll swing past at X time and grab little Johnny on the way to school. So it's not something that the person has to reach out and ask for. I think if you do it as I'm actually not taking no for an answer, and this is just something I'm doing for you. For anyone like me who finds it hard to ask.
Women need it like that, don't they? Why is that? I mean, that's a whole other topic, but
it is. It's a whole other couple of sessions.
When you said you find it hard to ask for help, I mean, I think that would be, I think the majority of women I hear from say that. And we to each other, we say it. I mean, you and I say it, and we say it as women to each other all the time. You need to ask me for help. Do we ever sit back and practically think, well, they have offered, what could I offload actually? What could I offload right now to someone who's asked, to help me? I don't know. That's a whole other topic, but women notoriously, we say we're going to, I'll text you. Yeah. But we actually still writing that text, say, hey, can you do this for me? I need this done or picked up is still difficult. So just tell them I'm getting
if you can do something, it's within your time constraints or means or whatever to do it, my advice would be just say, hey, this is what I'm doing for you. I am going to drop your kids off at school those next couple of days. Because to be honest, it is not the day of chemo that's the hard thing. It's the couple of days after when you start to feel really tired and much worse. For me, and I know this is not, again, everyone's experience, chemo day was nice. I got to go and sit in a big comfy chair with my book, and I was not expected to do anything else. And they brought me a cup of tea and some little biscuits. Like it was a couple of hours where I really had that permission to just sit and read. And yes, I had a needle sticking out of my port in my chest at the same time. But that was nothing. The actual going to chemo treatment, and the nurses were amazing. You get to know them all. And, you know, people who choose to work in that area, I think, are a special kind of people. So, you know, all the nurses were lovely. All the reception staff at any of the places I've been for any stage of my treatment are all doing their best to make your experience, you know, as manageable as it can be, because they know that none of us are there for anything particularly pleasant. But, actual chemo days, walk in the park. It was a couple of days after chemo.
So good for people to know, because we just wouldn't know that. So 48 hours afterwards is when it's hitting.
Yeah, I mean, some people find chemo days harder and like to have company while they're sitting there. And so I guess if you did know someone who was going through this, offering and saying, hey, I'm free on, you know, X day. If you want company for chemo, just say yes, or tell me a time and I'll be there. But I do think that's a really personal thing.
No, you want to read your book. You want to read your book.
I want to read my book.
Fair enough.
I was fortunate enough that the place I went actually was kind of 3 floors up with a beautiful view out towards the city. I had it made in the shade.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, we're running out of time, but I don't want this to be like too big a question, but I suppose what you know, you've talked about not being the same yourself as Carly pre-cancer, and as I said, I think that goes for a lot of people's moments in their lives. There are moments in our lives where I can say, you know, that people aren't the same before those events. It changes you. That's what events do, and you grow into a different person. You might not be able to answer this question, but has it changed your children?
I don't know. I think they are more aware that these sorts of things can happen, certainly. Look, I mean, both of them were incredibly lovely, doing most age-appropriate things they could think of to help me and support me. I mean, it didn't mean they didn't fight with each other like normal siblings do. Look, maybe it has changed them in terms of potentially their ability to talk to a peer who happens to end up going through something similar.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, you know, they you know, life is made of built experiences, and this is a major one for them. And so now that's inbuilt in their, you know, their psyche going forward, and their interaction with people with cancer diagnoses in the future, which will happen, whether it's a peer, whether it's, you know, as you know, their adult lives. The journey of cancer will be shaped with how their personal journey was in the last year. They'll be saying, oh, I watched my mum for a year and that's how it was. And so they'll be able to perhaps support someone in the future themselves. Yeah.
And look, as parents, we want to protect our kids, and it makes me sad that my kids had to have this experience. I may never know what this has done to them or how it has influenced who they are as adults growing up. But I won't. I never will, because this is what we got, right? And the best I can do, and the best any of us can do, is from here on in, you know, integrate it into who we are and hope it makes us better versions of ourselves in terms of being more compassionate or caring. I mean, this might be something that the one who was 5 at the time will turn up as a 15-year-old and go, hey, Mum, I've got a bunch of stuff I'm working through that I couldn't actually talk about at the time because I didn't have the vocabulary or the understanding to, but actually now I'd like to hash it out a little bit. Who knows, that might be what happens for them in the future. I think, look, it's made me appreciate them more. Fingers crossed it's made them appreciate me. Who knows? But, it's what I got. I'm still learning who I am now. And I hope that, all the people in my life can be a bit gentle with me with regards to that. There's this idea about survivorship is kind of the next stage that you go through when the appointments drop off, right? You don't check in with one or another doctor every other week and have someone telling you your progress is great or you're going really well or your numbers look amazing. It's this withdrawal of a lot of that support and attention that you were getting when you were in the thick of it. Check in with people. We're not all okay every day, but we're really okay some days. That's a really broad message, but
that's a good one. And if people what services does the National Breast Cancer Foundation offer? Even on their website, if people want to learn more about what support is out there, or if they've got a friend going through this, or if they've, want any kind of information, what can they do?
So I became a National Breast Cancer Foundation ambassador, given that I have a history in my family of cancer. I was always donating and buying pink ribbons, but always had this feeling that I wanted to do more. So I guess when I got the chance to do a little bit more, I did. The National Breast Cancer Foundation is really involved in fundraising, and that funding goes towards research. It's kind of one of the major bodies that contributes to research on breast cancer. So anywhere that anyone can sponsor someone in the Step Up, which is about to happen in August, where people sign up to do 10,000 steps a day. They run various different other things throughout the year, or you can make general donations anyway. All of that money goes into making sure that we're progressing with our treatments and means of detection and things like that. The treatments I had would not have been available to me without this research. So donations are so valuable. And starting at, as you said, visiting the website, because that will funnel you to, where you want to go for information and looking at support groups and things like that too. I personally found a really great support group on Facebook just by trying on a few different ones for size and finding people who were going through similar things. And then I think, as well as stuff like that, looking around at any other kind of bodies that you find who provide some of those kind of things. Look, breast care nurses that are in amongst public hospital departments and that you can access other ways have been really helpful too. There are a bunch of things that, unless you ask around about them or you pick up pamphlets in your oncologist's office, you might never know about. So things that are geared towards women, how to do your makeup when you're bald, and all of those kind of support systems. Places that come out to you and help fit you for prostheses when you require them down the track. I just think there's so much available out there that people don't know about. And it is just this sharing of information, looking at pamphlets that are around in oncology offices and things like that too. But certainly, also psychology is really important. I couldn't not say that, right, as a psychologist. But, there's no reason why you should or shouldn't do it. It's a personal choice. But having someone who's not emotionally engaged in the situation, that you don't have to worry about burdening or anything like that, is incredibly valuable as a part of the experience. Everyone is going through a tough enough time already, you know, with their own lives, and then watching someone they love also go through things like this. And I think tapping into professionals who do this as their bread and butter, be it any of the foundations, or, you know, looking up people yourself, I think it's all incredibly important.
Beautiful. Okay, we could just keep talking, but we have to get back to work. Thank you so much. That was brilliant. And if people also have kind of questions, if they're struggling with any of this, they could probably contact you directly. I'm assuming you're going to be open to that. If people want to reach out, they can reach out to you directly as well. Beautiful. Okay. Wow, that was great. I hope everyone enjoyed that.
Thank you, everyone.
It was really, really, really great. Thank you very much, Carly.
Thank you. See you later.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.